This is Software Engineering Radio, the podcast for professional developers on the web at se-radio.net. SE Radio brings you relevant and detailed discussions about software engineering topics at least once a month. Thanks to our audience and the partners listed on our website for supporting the podcast. Hello everybody to a new episode of SE Radio. This is going to be a somewhat different episode. We're not going to have one of our typical interviews today. Rather, we have what we typically call a State of the Union. Well, I think people have complained about that. So, a State of SE Radio episode. And with me on the Skype connection are Michael and Martin. Hello.
Hi.
Hello.
Well, and big changes are coming in SE Radio. I think I mentioned something without saying what on a tweet a while ago when we celebrated our 5 millionth download. And in, doing it just like Apple does it, I'm not going to say yet what's going to change. But, you might have read it in the title of the episode. But we're first going to look at what SE Radio has achieved in the last couple of years.
We have 182 episodes today.
And I think in total more than 5 million downloads, but I think is a pretty amazing number. I never thought that it would be so high until I read your tweet. Really amazing, I think.
Yeah, we have today. We have typically about 2,000 or 3,000 downloads per day in total.
And when I look back over the past, I don't know, maybe 6 years now, could that be? Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Over the past 6 years, it's. I'm pretty happy that we got so many great and interesting interview partners invited to our show. It was always fun and a lot of great stuff to talk to people like, I don't know, Martin Fowler and Ken Begg and all the others. It was really a lot of fun.
Yeah, I agree. And so we have the best downloaded episodes, I just checked a minute ago, had 47,000 something downloads. And on average, we have about 27,500. So that's quite a sizable, reasonable audience, I think.
Which one was it?
The best one?
Yeah.
The best one was the Patterns episode we did at the very beginning. It may be that because it's the first episode, people downloaded it automatically when they subscribe to the podcast. So maybe that's the reason.
Okay.
Maybe it's also just a great episode. But there are also a number of others with more than 40,000. Actually, why don't I briefly check what the top 10 are?
Yeah, that would be interesting.
Yeah, let me check.
So who wants to do a bet on it?
Well, I don't know. I would guess that... Actually, I have no idea.
I think the episode with Werner Vogels is among the top 10.
Okay.
I also believe Doug Schmidt could be high up in the top 10.
I'm going to venture that some of the more recent episodes probably would be in the top 10 if they weren't so recent. I mean, obviously, you can't have, the latest episode with some of the most downloads, obviously. So let me read the top 10 to you. Starting with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So 10 is Living Architectures. I think that was with Andre Weinand, right?
Sounds right.
I think so.
36,000. Then with 36,000 something, we have the Dependencies episode. That's episode number 2. And then next best is the Being a Consultant episode.
Hey, this is about you.
Yeah, it was also one of the first episodes where we didn't do any editing.
Also, when we recorded in the car, right?
Yeah, because that was the quietest place we could find in Hamburg.
Right.
Okay, so the next one was episode 170 with Buzz Fode. What was the topic there?
That was agility in the large.
Ah, I see. Okay. Then the next one is the Scala update with Martin Odersky. We did not too long ago. It was 171. So then the next one is Feature-Oriented Software Development Part 2, 38,000. And then Kent Beck with 40,000. Then the next one is Memory Grid Architectures with 40,000. And then, what do you think? Actually,
I gave my bet already, so don't know.
There is a way to find out what this one is. It's actually kind of obvious. No, seriously, because we've already had part 2 of the feature-oriented software development episode.
Oh, then it's part 1. I know it. It's part 1 of feature-oriented.
Exactly. Right. Okay, and then episode on the first place is the patterns episode.
Oh, wow.
So, well, I guess before we announce the changes, we should say thank you to all the people who are and were involved, especially those that are not so visible because they work in the background, right?
Yeah.
So,
I start with our spam fighter. It's Attila Michali Balash.
Right. So he moderates the comments and kills the crap. Very useful. We do have an automatic spam filter, but it doesn't work well, so he does the rest. And then we have our publishing crew. There is Volker Mostaf, who collects all the show notes and stuff and then puts the stuff online for download. And there is Christy Popovici, who does the sound editing. So we basically send him the raw edited interviews, and he then puts on the sound and our jingle at the beginning, and he cleans up some of the audio.
And there's our web administrator, Bernd Kolb.
Right.
A long friend of us. Thanks, Bernd, very much.
I think he at some point also did an episode, but I think only 1 or 2 maybe.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly.
Yeah. And then
but he's on the team for a very, very long time.
Yeah, forever, I think. Maybe.
From the beginning, yes.
I think so, yeah. And since
maybe longer than me, I think.
Yeah, that's funny. I always thought that you were on the team since the beginning, but that's not true, right?
No. It was a WJAX conference in Munich, I don't know, many years ago, when you asked me if I would like to join the team. So that existed before.
Well, since we're talking about the old times, there are 3 editors who have left us since then, and I think all of them were founding editors. Eberhard Wolf, who you know as Mr. Spring, who now does something different, but he still talks about Spring all the time. Arno Hase and Alexander Schmid. They have all left us because they basically didn't have any time anymore.
But thank you, folks, again. Thanks for pushing it in the beginning so hard.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always important to get a good group at the beginning to get something launched. And we should also thank our new editors who have done a couple of episodes already and who you know by voice, Robert Blumen and Scott Jensen. They have taken up some of the slack that we created by not doing episodes, and that kind of the holes that opened up when Eberhard, Arno, and Alex left. And I think they brought in a somewhat different, set of topics, but that's very useful because we don't do the same stuff all the time. Very good. So, should we talk about the change?
Yes.
So the change is that from now on, SE Radio will live under the wings or under the umbrella of IEEE software. And actually, there is another person on our conference call here. He didn't say anything so far. So welcome, Forrest Chall.
Thank you. Hi, it's great to be here.
Good to have you on. So you're going to be, why don't you introduce yourself so people know who you are?
Sure. Well, I'm the editor-in-chief of IEEE Software Magazine, and actually, maybe I should begin by saying, I've been a big fan of SE Radio for a long time. So we're looking into this new relationship. We're moving into this new relationship with a sense of both being very excited. I think this is a great, SE Radio, I think, has done a great job, and it's just exciting to be associated with it. And, a little tiny bit of nervousness, I'll say, because I think that when you have something that has such a great cachet and has such a loyal listenership, you don't want to do anything that's going to mess any of that up. So we certainly we recognize that we have big shoes to fill, but we're very excited, and I think this is a great partnership that we can go forward with.
Yeah. So do you want to say a little bit about the magazine and, how that fits SE Radio?
Yes, I'd love to. So IEEE Software is one of the leading magazines in software engineering. And one of the unique things about us is that we have a mix of articles that are both peer-reviewed, so that have been vetted rigorously and have gone through the scientific peer review process. We really do take it quite seriously, our mission to try and take things that are in research that should be being used by people in industry and by practitioners, and make sure that their practitioners are getting the best advice and the best findings from the research. But we also have a number of other features in the magazine, some departments, for example, that are written by a lot of the thought leaders in the field. So we have pieces that are written by Grady Booch, for example, on an ongoing basis. We have Philippe Kruchten, who's writing some of the more thought-provoking or more controversial columns and trying to get some debate and discussion started about that. So we have a long history of trying to be on the cutting edge. Our mission is to be the best possible source of reliable, useful, and peer-reviewed information for practitioners. And I think that the way that we've tried to have coverage, the way that we've tried to keep people that read the magazine up to date on the topics that they need to know about to stay current in this software engineering field, which is changing all the time, I think that these mission statements that we have and the success that we've had goes exactly in the same direction as what SE Radio has been able to do all these years also.
Yeah, I think one way I always phrased it is that IEEE is trying to also be hype-free and not be too much driven by, the topic of the day, but rather a little bit more by the, timeless fundamentals in some sense. And SE Radio has always tried to do that as well.
Yes, so I'm so glad you said that, actually, because we do, there's no shortage of hype and all kinds of very fad-driven types of information out there. And we really do try and cut through all of that and come up with, like you said, what's been tested and what's proven and what do people really need to know about. And like you said, I think we recognize a kindred spirit in the SE Radio team.
Yeah, I think we should say a word about how we got to the point of doing this. So I have been on the editorial board for the last, I think, 3 years. I've just been rotated out. And that's how I got to know the IEEE software. And there was at one board meeting in Munich, there was a discussion about new media and multimedia and how IEEE software could become more modern and in terms of the media, not in terms of the content. Mm-hmm. And I was thinking, well, that sounds like they should do a podcast. And so that was the starting point for the thing, right?
Yes, and it's amazing to me. I think that for a long time, I think there was this kind of a sense that, well, if we're doing very rigorous and peer-reviewed information, that there's a sense in which it's meant to be in a written publication. And I think over the last few years, we've really worked very hard with the other folks at the magazine to change that perspective. And I think that the more we can do to reach practitioners in all the ways that they can best use the information, the better off we're going to be, and the bigger audience we're going to be able to reach.
Right.
So, and what I always say is I live in Washington, D.C., which means I live a huge percentage of my time, I think, spent on the Beltway, the big highway that goes around the city, stuck in traffic. And if it wasn't for things like SC Radio, it would just be wasted time. But as it turns out, it's time where I feel like, I can get caught up on all those past episodes I really wanted to hear about.
Right.
So I think it's a great way to kind of get the information to people where they can most use it in their ongoing lives.
Right. So let's talk about what is not going to change as a consequence of this merger or whatever you want to call it.
Well, one thing I was going to say, which we're going to be very careful not to change, is the wide variety of topics that have been covered on SC Radio. And I think one reason that IEEE software is a good fit is that in every issue, we do make sure that we have coverage over all the major activities, requirements, architecture, design, testing, development, all the technologies that are both technical and human aspect related. So I think that one thing I've always enjoyed about SC Radio is that there's such a broad array of so many kinds of different topics, ranging all the way from individual programming languages to things like quantum computing. And I think that we're really going to put the effort into making sure that we keep that broad spectrum of things, that all kinds of different people are going to be able to find topics that they're really interested in and excited about with the things going forward.
Yeah, I think for our listeners, it's very important to hear that SE Radio will remain on the Creative Commons license, right? So it will still be free to listen and still be free to consume for all our listeners. The past episodes, the future episodes will all be the same, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. That there is also not going to be any advertisement on the shows, except maybe, cross hints. The magazine may say, here is an interesting episode on SE Radio, and SE Radio may say, here is an interesting article that you may read if you are interested any deeper, right?
Mm-hmm.
So,
That's
you want to exploit the benefits of this.
Yes, I certainly hope that listeners will not hear any kind of a big change in the tone, or in we certainly we're not out there being markety type people. We really are a bunch of technical folks, technical geeks. I was going to say, much more interested in the content than about selling things.
Right. So what's going to change is that what is going to change? First of all, I guess there will be new people on the team, right? Forrest, you're going to be the, how would you call it, the spiritual leader?
Oh, I'm going to put that on my business card now. That's great. But yes, I think one of the things that will be changing is that there's going to be a lot of new voices that listeners will be hearing. And like I said, we have experts associated with the magazine that have all kinds of different topic areas that they're interested in, and we'll be rotating through a lot of these folks. Every one of them has access to a lot of the thought leaders in the field and a lot of the interesting new things coming out of research and innovative practice. And so I think that my hope is that we're going to rotate among all these different topic areas, and you'll be hearing a number of different voices talking about the topics that they're really passionate about. So we do have a large editorial board, and we'll be able to exploit that, I think, going forward to make sure that we do get exciting topics from a lot of these different areas.
Right. I guess that, of course, there will also, some of the current team will also stay on. I know that Attila has already announced that he will continue to fight spam. What about you guys, Martin, Michael?
Yeah, I will definitely stay on the team, and I will also in the future produce some episodes. Maybe maybe in the past I was also not a very frequent speaker on SE Radio, so I didn't record that many episodes. But I will definitely continue to record episodes for SE Radio, and will continue to stay on the team.
The same holds true for me. I also intend to do the one and the other episode here and there on interesting topics, on topics that I catch up during my daily job and like to share and talk about in this broader forum.
Right. Same for me here. Although I think in the near future you won't hear much of me. I'm quite busy with my other podcast, the Omega Tau thing. Which I have to grow to the same numbers as SE Radio. We're still far away. So I'm going to focus on that in the near future, but I'm sure I'm going to do the occasional SE Radio episode, of course, as well. So, what else do we have to say? What did we miss? What did we forget? I guess we're all... I can certainly say that I'm looking forward quite a bit to this cooperation, I really think this is going to be a very fruitful cooperation in the sense that I know some of the people at IEEE Software, and I know that that's a fit.
Yes, I was going to say, you've had, I think, several of our board members actually as interviewees on podcasts over the course of the last year or so. So it'll be, I think we'll be able to tap those people and go back to them and hear some more about what they've been doing, and it'll be interesting to have them on the other side of the microphone, too.
Yes, right, yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm.
I'm looking definitely forward to it. I'm very excited. About this change, about, the fresh blood, about the new voices, about new additional topics. I like it.
Yeah, I think we are looking forward into a great future for SE Radios. I'm very much looking forward to it. I'm really excited about this cooperation. Right. Really great.
So one last thing, there should hopefully not be any infrastructure changes. The URL should still work. It might redirect to another page. The URL for the podcast, we've already routed it through FeedBurner, so that should continue to work as well, even if we decided to host the show somewhere else, which at this point we haven't decided yet. So most likely the infrastructure that's visible to you guys, to listeners, shouldn't change. But if it does change, we'll let you know, of course. By the way, Michael, Martin, we have forgotten to thank somebody before. We didn't thank our listeners. We should do this.
Of course.
To the 5 million. Well, it's not 5 million people, it's 5 million downloads.
But to the 50,000 approximately at most.
Yeah, that's probably realistic.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And tell all your friends so we can add another 50,000.
Yes, please.
Okay, so then I guess that's it.
Yeah. So let me say one more time, just thank you, well, both to the listeners and to you guys for putting so much energy and building up such an exciting and viable podcast. I think we're like I said, we're really looking forward to taking it forward and even building on what you've done and certainly taking it further, hopefully.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun, I can say that. I mean, it really was a labor of love, and we're certainly very happy to see where it has gone, and also to see it now taken over by an established organization that keeps it alive until the indefinite future. Okay, so
great. Let's
thanks.
get to it.
And bye.
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 Thanks for listening to Software Engineering Radio. SE Radio is an educational program brought to you by Hillside Europe. If you want more information about the podcast and the other episodes, visit our website at se-radio.net. If you want to support us, you can donate to the SE Radio team via the website, or you can advertise for SE Radio, for example, by clicking on the Dig, Reddit, Delicious and Slashdot buttons, or by talking about us on Twitter and Facebook. You can also support us by joining the team and shouldering some of the work. To contact the team, please send email to team@se-radio.net, or if your feedback is specific to an episode, please use the comments facility on the website so other people can react to your comments. This episode of SE Radio, as well as all other episodes, are licensed under a Creative Commons 2.5 license. Please see the website for details.